Hey, everybody. Paul Showalter with Digon. I'm going to be your Jimmy Kimmel for the day. Thank you. Yes, thank you. I thought I would have to beg for at least one person to applaud, so that's awesome. I got that voluntarily. All right, first up today, the chief of the SMS Technical Center of Expertise. You know him, you love him, Matt Walters.
Thanks for coming out. A lot of familiar faces, probably even more new faces. So nice to meet you. As Paul said, my name is Matt Walters. I serve as the chief of the SMS TCX, or Sustainment Management System Technical Center of Expertise, if you're wondering what that X stands for. I've been with step back a second. We're a part of the Army Corps of Engineers, reside within the Engineer Research Development Center, and I am physically located at the Construction Engineering Research Laboratory within the SMS TCX. Long name. So, of course, in the government, we shorten that to USACE, ERDIC, SERL, SMS, TCX. We use half the alphabet, but it gets the job done. So, overall, I've been with the team just over 17 years in total, working as a student, as a local high school student originally, and then working through my time in college at the University of Illinois, and then full-time a little over 10 years now. So I don't know if anybody's keeping track of the math, but 17 years gets you pretty close. So what we're going to run through this morning is a bit of an overview of, kind of a brief overview of SMS, a lot of new faces. Maybe there's a helpful recap. This will be kind of old hat information for some of you, but I wanted to give a little bit of an overview of what SMS is in broad concept, things that we do within the SMS TCX, jump into a status update on ESMS in slide version, and then if all holds well together, we're going to do the risky thing of a live demo here of the app with some demonstration data. So without further ado, we'll jump right in. PowerPoint's asking if I want to turn on subtitles. I don't know. Do you want subtitles? All right. So starting out, just describing what SMS is. Really, SMS boils down to an engineered process for performing asset lifecycle management of real property infrastructure. And the way we deliver that is through a collection, historically, a collection of web-based software applications. And with the coming of ESMS, looking to consolidate all of those into a single web-based software application. The SMS process down in the lower left-hand corner kind of shows you the steps that we go through for performing this asset management process, from collecting the inventory, collecting assessment information, performing our kind of unique and characteristic performance lifecycle modeling on that and the degradation modeling, establishing rules and procedures for work identification and work prioritization, and then the ability to forecast those requirements, those condition elements and those requirements out into the future so that you can do different consequence and trade-off analysis. What is my outcome at the end of 10 years with budget X? What do I look like in my portfolio health if budget X is now X minus 10%, minus 20%? What if I prioritize this class of facility over this one? What do I look like in a 10-year span? So various things that can be done there in setting up those different forecasts and being able to communicate these different courses of action to your leadership or maybe yourself as the primary stakeholder. So this kind of works through some of that as you kind of see laid out visually here on this particular slide. And then the last thing to kind of mention for this slide is that this work has been ongoing within the Army Corps of Engineers at SERL specifically since the 1970s. So Paul jokes, you know me, you know what I've done. I've been here 17 years, but that pales in comparison to the work that came before me and that has continued to be ongoing since the 1970s. So our work across the SMS TCX, things that we talk about within the Engineer Research Development Center, within the ERDIC, is that we discover, develop, and deliver ways of making the world safer and better every day. So kind of putting it into that framework, we discover, develop, deliver, and sustain. We add that piece in all areas of real property asset management. So in our discover column there, just listed a few fairly recent journal publications in ASCE, and I think the one that's really faint there is the Journal on Building Performance. And so we have a team of researchers actively looking at these life cycle models. How do we better project how these things are going to degrade over time, trying to refine the models that go into the SMS tools, and deepen our understanding of modeling asset degradation so that we can have a better product going into the next step of develop. So that's really where we're taking these new discoveries, these new models, and rolling that into an actual application that you on the end user side can leverage in your organization for better asset management. So we have the enterprise there at the top, represented by the different domains within that, below that, the builder application, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with as well. In the deliver column, this is where we work with a lot of you in the room to actually implement the SMS tools in your organization and bring those capabilities to bear for your asset management needs within your particular organization. Working through statements of work for assessments, working through the details on work configuration and forecasting, troubleshooting different things with cost data or calculations. Why is it giving me this answer? Why is it giving me this value? And helping to walk through and work through those different details. The last step here, or last column of sustain, this is also a very big part of what our team does in maintaining help documentation, training video content, our help desk based out of Searle, as well as the risk management framework process to manage our authorities to operate so that we can actually operate in a DoD and federal environment. There's been a lot of impact overall the years with SMS and a number of partners that we've garnered. I like to point out that, Kurt kind of touched on this a little bit ago with just the number of federal agencies working within the SMS tools. This is just a snapshot of the entities and organizations that I see through my lens. Sometimes we hear after the fact of agencies working with other vendors, other contractors, so this may be a larger list than I'm aware of. If you don't see your group on there, and I should know, I apologize. Feel free to come up and tell me. But more importantly, if your agency is not up there, and I don't know about that, I'd love to talk to you, love to hear about how you're using this. We also have a number of licensing partners that we work with through our tech transfer office, and you see a number of those listed there. In all, kind of highlighting some of Kurt's numbers from a bit ago, over 2.25 billion square feet of building assets under management within the builder application, 250,000 plus facilities, 10 million plus components, 20 million plus assessments, and over 6 million images of components, assessments, and inspection data. So a lot of data, primarily in this particular graphic, centered around the buildings domain. And obviously, we anticipate that to grow pretty significantly as we jump into the ESMS application. Kurt touched on this just a minute ago, so I won't belabor the point here. Builder development since we last met in August of 2023. We had the 3673 release in August 18th of 2023, and anticipating the 368 release come April of this year. Just including those notes, release notes as well, if you'd like to take a look at those on your own time. All right, so jumping into a little bit more enterprise SMS specific information here. If you were here yesterday afternoon, I hear you saw a pretty good walkthrough in slide format of the application, going through the different features and functions and how it's taking shape. If you weren't tracking, this is your first time in here this morning, the Enterprise SMS is a consolidated platform built on modern web application development technology for all of the historic SMS domains. So you see those, some of those listed up there with buildings, rail, pavement, some of those historic things, as well as the development of a number of new domains that were based in the Enterprise platform. fuels infrastructure, utilities, water control structures, so dams, levees, dikes, and waterfront structures like piers and wharves and things of that nature. The ESMS application is built in a cloud-native framework, cloud-native modern web application deployed currently in the Azure environment, Army Azure environment. In the process of developing a field application to accompany that. However, as I'll show in the demo, the current application actually renders and can be run from a government device, such as an iPhone or iPad, in its current form. Covered Azure government infrastructure, access through ESMS, so CAC authentication and sponsoring options for those. And then integration, we've developed a very API-centric application. So a lot of talk of integrating with computerized maintenance management systems, third-party inspection tools and applications that can all be done through our API-centric design. Builder has an API that was kind of an after add-on effect, whereas Enterprise SMS was very centrally designed around an API so that every function that can be done within the application could be done through an API. So since we last met, if you were with us in August of 2023, we were working through the process of our authority to operate for our DoD and federal customers. And we thought at the time that the ATO was imminent. It was going to be set up and queued up for October. But we ran into a number of challenges, as you do with IT accreditation and all the processes involved there. So a lot of the environment is already built out. The URL is established. It's ready to go in a production environment. Sorry, one second. However, in the middle of running through the accreditation process, we had some changes in the RMF version that we were being required to use, requiring a lot of rework. And so we spent the last quarter of the calendar year and the first part of this calendar year redoing all that before we could actually submit that for the approval workflow approval process. So the authorization was kicked off in mid-January. We are currently in stage 4 of 6, about 75 days or so in at this point. And we're working through it. We're waiting for all that to finalize and make its way all the way through. So the next point here, many projections on this have been made. I've always tried to be as upfront and candid with where we are and what we can control within the SMS TCX. A lot of those have been with perceived weatherman sort of accuracy. So I'll spare you kind of prognostications of where it's going to be and when we're going to land on that. We say it's imminent. We're just waiting for that to come back, and then we'll be live, ready to go in that environment in a production basis. So yeah, if you want to beat me up afterwards for what I said in August of last year, feel free to find me outside after. Despite that, I don't want to leave you with the sense that things have just paused since August of last year, that we haven't been able to make any progress. Our team continues to test, fix, and improve the application as we prepare for data migration, as we prepare to harden the application for you all to get in and start using it. And just since our last summit in August, there have been roughly 250 different issues that our developers have fixed, closed out, tested, and is now going to be in the application you see here in just a little bit. All right, so just a couple more things on the cloud infrastructure of ESMS. This should be pretty familiar if you were with us last August, but just to reiterate some of these points, that the app is built in a cloud-native environment. If you're familiar with the IT side of things, that probably makes sense to you. If not, I'll try to give the layman's explanation. Essentially, the app can plug into the cloud and make use of and leverage all of those cloud-native capabilities with accreditation, cost, security, scalability, and reliability. It's different than how Builder has been hosted forever in its entire life. and really allows us to be able to leverage these different capabilities that a modern web application and enterprise web application can. So if you saw this little video clip playing, this is just showing one of our developers who recorded a nice little video of changing the resourcing available to one of our sites. It's as simple as dragging a slider, clicking save, and you have that higher performing system. How we had to do that with Builder, if we needed more performance, things were getting slow because too many users were on, start the paperwork, we're buying bare metal hardware, this is gonna take a while. So a huge improvement for ESMS in being able to show very quick scalability and be able to scale to the need of the community using the application. All right, so the next thing to talk about here is ESMS mobile development. So we are working with an existing ERDIC platform out of one of our sister labs, the Information Technology Lab, based out of Vicksburg, Mississippi, to build an ESMS mobile capability on top of that, to allow for offline, disconnected data collection, as you may be familiar with Builder Red, kind of a similar concept there, but updated in framework and capability, updated data storage and transmission protocols. Gone are the days of bread files. These will be API-based transaction from the web app to the mobile app. Allows for the capability of collecting inventory and assessment data out into the field in that disconnected manner. This platform that we are working with has GIS native capabilities as well. So as we branch out into more linear assets beyond just the building assets, the ability to navigate through a GIS view to get to your assets, get to the components within that enabled as well. Another really fantastic feature of this platform and what we're really excited to leverage is the ability to deploy to 3 different operating systems from one code base. So the ESMS mobile would be able to be available in Windows, Android, and iOS, probably in order of Windows first, the other 2 to follow, so that if you have a government-issued iPad or Android tablet, you could actually take that into the field with ESMS as well and use that for your data collection. The last bullet to mention here, our development efforts getting started with this. I think we briefly mentioned this last August, this concept and where we were headed. Has been delayed as we're finalizing receipt of all of our FY24 funding into the SMS TCX. So as soon as that's all in and we can get going, we'll be hitting the ground running with that. All right, so this next slide here talking through kind of the process we've got developed for a particular issue or item, whether that's a feature or a bug in the application, goes through to get to the application that you see today. A lot of text up here, a lot of steps in this process, but what I really want to highlight is especially in the bottom, well, it's really throughout. A lot of this has been turned from manual processes within Builder SMS to automated processes for deploying the application. So in the old days with Builder, we'd have to run through each of these typically in a 3 to 4 month time frame, and then we would have to cut an installer for the application, test that installer, push that out to you all, and then by the time it gets to you, you found maybe another bug that we didn't catch, and we start the whole process over again, and you're waiting months sometimes to get that into the next installer and the next quarterly release. With ESMS, what we have done is made all of this an automated DevOps pipeline or development operations pipeline so that we are producing a new version of the application and providing a new version of the application at the speed of testing, essentially. So as a developer works on something, it moves on to the next phase for the testers to evaluate. Once the testers evaluate it, it's out to you and in your hands. So working through those has been extremely helpful. Watching the pace of development within our development team and our internal versions is greatly increased over what we had with Builder, largely due to these tools and capabilities that we have to get that out very quickly. So gone are the days of waiting 3-4 months to be able to test something. Once the developer has done it, run it through testing, and it will be in the new version of the application. So very helpful on that front. For support material, we are still working through a build out of initial how-to videos, instructional videos, training videos on ESMS and how to use it. The app, just since August has gone, 250 issues, I think we mentioned. And so there's a lot of changing, a lot happening within the application. And we're starting to get to a point of stabilization that we won't cut a video and then it's immediately stale or it doesn't make any sense because we moved button ABC over here from over there. So we'll be working to get those built out here in the coming months. And in addition to that, developing and building out a builder transition guide that's designed to help different agencies, services and agencies migrate from the builder application to ESMS. So the data structure is a little bit different. The accounts and permission structure is very different and a lot more flexible. And a number of things are just, they're new. It's different, and we want to ensure that you have a smooth transition from what you're used to in the builder application over into the ESMS application. That version, or that app tool, essentially, is an Excel workbook just to walk you through these different phases of the migration process, the intake, staging, and production phases of that, working to make sure that it's migrating as you anticipated, that the data looks as you would expect it, and your access to the application is as you need it as well. This is ready for dissemination to our federal partners and is something I will be sending out here later this week to get your feedback and let you start pouring over that so we can initiate that intake process for migration from Builder into the ESMS application. All right, I think this is our second to last slide before we get to the demo portion here. It's very similar to Builder. We are looking to license the ESMS application as well in collaboration with our Office of Tech Transfer, the ORT office there that you see, to develop our pathway forward for our patent licensing agreements, our PLAs. So within the SMS TCX, we work with federal agencies. If you're federal, we can work with you. If you're not, we can't. But we're starting to see a bit of an uptick in interest through our licensing partners in states, municipalities, private entities, and the like that want to take advantage of these tools, and they can through the patent licensing agreement. So as Builder fades out, this is what we're looking to replace that with, a patent licensing agreement through the ESMS application. So much of that is handled through our ORT office. I serve as kind of an advisor on the technical side of things and how that could come together, but they handle all of those agreements and help us work through all those details. So a lot of that is still in play. The application is a lot different than Builder was. How we get that to people, the agreements, all that's going to be new and refreshed. So I just wanted to put that out there, that it's not something that we've lost sight of, and something we want to continue to be able to do and provide this tool for audiences outside of just the federal government. All right, and last slide here, and then we'll jump into the demonstration portion and open up the floor for a question and answer. Just some general information resources you can take a look at there. Our general info website there at the top, our support website that has different documents, frequently asked questions, the ability to contact our help desk, among other things. And then lastly, our LMS or Learning Management System site that has training videos and content that you can walk through the applications as well. So there's content up there for Builder. There's old content that you probably can't see for ESMS, and this will be the home for our new training videos as it relates to ESMS in the future. So, all right, that's all I have slide-wise. Before I switch over to the demo, maybe I'll pause for a minute, see if there are any questions in the room or online.
I have two questions. The first question is with Paver and Railer being absorbed into ESMS, are they still going to have the same functionality as far as predicting, forecasting, and planning as with the original systems? And if they aren't, why not?
Yes, the intent is to have full parity of those capabilities in both.
And then my next question is with Bread, if it has sunset, are we going to be able to utilize something similar as soon as the migration happens? And if not, why can we not continue to utilize Bread with a new ATO?
Yeah, so the migration will probably happen simultaneously with the production of the ESMS web app, or mobile application rather. That's probably not going to be immediate. And so I would imagine the agency service looking to migrate would plan that to line up as opposed to jumping out without it. As I'll show in the demo, I guess just hold up for you to see, you can use the application on a mobile device. So if you have a hotspot capability, you can use that in the field. However, we understand that some of these places are not very cell service conducive, so we'll need that offline capability.
So until that happens, is there a way we could get a new ATO for Bread to prepare our NECs? Especially in the Army, we don't have permissions to use Bread without those ATOs. So
Yeah,
we
so
would need a new one because it just expired in February.
Yeah, one thing I didn't mention on that Builder slide is we have an extension for the Builder ATO. I think that's through, I want to say that's through August, as we're working through some additional changes similar to we had to do in, it was obtained in early 2024. Yeah, it was right down to the wire of when that was extended. However, I guess to address the question of using Bread with ESMS to dispel any confusion there, those two are not compatible. Bread would still be able to be used with Builder, in that interim time of migration, but Builder and Bread go together, and they don't intermix with ESMS. So hopefully that's helpful. All right, any other questions? I see Joe's got one.
Matt, when will the training for the migration from from SMS to ESMS be available?
Yeah, the goal is for the end of the summer to have at least an initial training videos for every area of the application. I imagine that'll be very iterative as we continue to make changes to the application and make updates to that, but the end of this summer is kind of the goal for that initial round of videos.
Okay, we'll need it for the test sites before we start doing the testing.
Thanks, Richard.
One of the historic headaches for Army customers has been that Builder does not talk well with all of the other systems that we use. For instance, because Builder is not a system of record, it doesn't tie into ISR, it doesn't tie to HQIIS, it doesn't tie to our plans or any of the other data sources that we could potentially tap to fill in a lot of the blanks and not have to manually transfer information over. And Lord forbid that you ever try to tie it to GFEBs. Now, is that going to change here?
That's a great question. Maybe a bit loaded, but we'll take it. The capability to integrate will be much better. I can't speak for maybe organizational resistance or challenges with agreements and the like, and who will or won't turn on the connection between the two. That remains to be seen. However, the ability to connect and ability to integrate with ESMS is far better than it was with Builder, based on modern capabilities and technology.
That is close enough to a yes for my satisfaction.
Thanks. Thanks. On the back, Paul Thiel.
Online question. After Builder sunsets, when will ESMS sunset?
After Builder sunsets, when will ESMS sunset?
Correct.
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe it's the other way. After ESMS comes online, when will Builder sunset? There really isn't a rush from my standpoint on sunsetting Builder, other than some of the technology challenges keeping up with vulnerabilities and stuff on an older application can be tiresome at times. So the pace of sunsetting Builder will largely be dictated by the pace at which organizations and agencies migrate to the ESMS application. So we've been really hesitant to set a date for that until you can confidently see that there's a boat to jump to before we push you out of the current one. So once we get to that point, we're in our production environment, we have a little bit of track under our feet that we've ran and had some success with, then we'll start looking at sunsetting that. When ESMS gets sunset, I don't know, hopefully a ways down the road there.
Follow up from what Melissa asked. So did you say the bread ATO for Legacy Builder is going to be renewed this month? Is that what you indicated? I wasn't clear on your answer.
Yeah, so that one is a little complicated to describe. So the Builder ATO was extended in, I think, the very end of February. It's a temporary extension to get us through some of this migration from a new version of RMF and working through a bunch of stuff there. The bread application has been included within that, under that umbrella. That's a decision for the authorizing official, whether they want to continue doing that or not. So that's what we're going to try to do to enable that to still be available in the interim. But that's a little bit out of my realm.
But so it's your understanding then the data packet that you need to supply to the cyber approval authorities within the respective clients would still become available once that process is complete?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
I
then
believe so.
the sunsetting timeline, I would assume, is years, not months?
Definitely years, not months. Yeah, yeah. Oh, one more in the back.
Do you have a catchy new name for the offline tool?
A catchy new name for the offline tool. Bagel. I don't know. No, we don't. No, we don't. We don't have any names at this point. All right. Give me just a moment. I think I need to do a quick network switch, and then we'll jump into the demo. So feel free to talk amongst yourselves for just a second. All right, I think we're set and ready to go with the demo now. So what we're looking at here this morning is from our demonstration site. Let the dull roar calm a second. All right, so what we're looking at here this morning is from our demonstration site. So first thing I want to point out and be sure to communicate here is this banner at the top. It says CUI. That's the highest that this environment can hold. Nothing that you're seeing is CUI. This is all made-up data that our engineers put together to demonstrate the capabilities of the application. So just want to make that clear. I know we're probably in mixed company here this morning, so I just want to make sure that everybody's tracking with that. So. All right, so to start out with, this is the application. This is the kind of the landing page as it currently stands with how we log into the application, what we're met with upon first login here. Across the top, you'll see an enterprise SMS logo. Will bring you back to this home page at any given point, wherever you're at within the application, kind of a home button, if you will. Off to the right-hand side of this toolbar, we've got a few different things, new capabilities within ESMS that are borrowed from other modern web applications, but things we did not have in Builder, such as background running tasks. So if you've ever kicked off a roll-up in Builder and you just wait, and you wait a little longer, and it's still on the screen, and you want to check something, but you can't because it's still rolling up, that's something we changed within ESMS. So we can actually kick those off, that moves into a background running process. You can continue to use the application and then just check on its progress periodically to see how that's coming along. Similar to that, a new notifications section within the application. So as roll-ups complete, as long-range work plans, scenarios complete and are finished and ready for your review, those will pop up in your notifications so that you can kick those off, leave, go do other things within the application, get your other work done, and then check back when you have a notification once that's complete. So just a creature comfort thing within the application, save you a little time of navigating back to that part of the application, checking on the status manually, and just a little more interactive with the application. There are some additional features and capabilities we're working through, ironing out some of the kinks with and updating to this latest version visually that you see here that would actually allow notifications between users. So if you set up an inspection team and different QA, QC processes within that, you could actually perform the assessment, kick it off to the QC team, they run through it, it kicks off to the next team and works its way through that workflow. And notifications for those would show up in this particular part of the application as well. Other very simple things that just come with a modern web application. If you like dark mode, you can go to dark mode. So that seems to be a hit. Okay. Other things from the top toolbar here, just user account information, user preferences, and things like that. Announcements of recent development additions, what's changed since you last logged in, what new features, new fixes have been deployed to the application you're running. Preferences, very similar to Builder, but additional capabilities and features there to be able to show, I think maybe Kurt had some of this in his slides yesterday, show the permissions, assignments that you have as a user within the application, what permission, what role, where is that located, to give you a little more visibility and a little more transparency on what you should and shouldn't be able to do within the application. The ability to save a default workspace of organization and domains, which we'll get to in a minute, so that each time you log in, those are stayed and you don't have to reset those every time you come in. Some about information, a link to SMS support, the web page I talked about just a little bit ago for our SMS support team. Contact them, access resources and documents, and frequently asked questions there. We'll get into this toward the end here, but developer API. So this is built into the application for developers, for systems integrators to actually be able to access the, what am I trying to say here? All the documentation for the API. How do I make a call to get this data point out of ESMS? How do I interact with ESMS from an API standpoint? And so all that's baked into the application. It's made live every time we're pushing a new version of the application. This documentation is continuously updated along with it. And lastly, when I'm done for the day, I can log out. On the left-hand side of the screen, as you probably saw in some of this yesterday, kind of a stacked layout menu bar of different areas of the application, loosely following that SMS process we talked about here earlier this morning. Inventory, assess, work planning, and things of that nature, as well as a number of administrative level tools that I have here for my particular account. At the top, we have organization selection. So one thing we've talked about with ESMS this morning, and another point to bring up, we've talked about the consolidation of domains into a single application. I can do comparative analysis of investment strategies. If I focus on my buildings, but I neglect my utility systems, where do I look like at the end of a 10-year run? Can I, have gold-plated facilities, but I can't turn on the faucet because the pipes feeding it are messed up? I've kind of missed the point, right? So being able to see a system of systems of all these different domains and how they interact together. The other aspect of consolidation here is the ability to have multiple organizations in a single instance of the application. So as it presently stands, every service agency has their own instance of the application of Builder. Data sharing amongst them, very difficult to do. Data roll-up to the top level organization, very difficult to do. This is looking to resolve that, being able to have better features and capabilities for parent organization reporting and understanding of metrics and data, the ability to have better data sharing for joint basing or tenant-host relationships, and things of that nature. So you'll see a number of familiar organization names. Again, that's about as familiar as it's going to get. Everything after that, made-up data here. So I've got the DoD example org selected here for our demonstration, and we'll work with that as we cruise through the application. The next thing down from that, selection of different domains within the application. So these are all the different infrastructure domains that we have included at this point within ESMS, and working to develop those out further. So we'll work through selecting a number of those and showing you different features of those as we go as well. For now, we'll just leave it at buildings and then add to that here in a bit. All right, as we drill down into inventory, this is broken out into organizations, sites, facilities, components, and then we'll cover groups last, and hopefully that makes sense as we get going. So from an organizational view, I can see all these different organizations listed. I can look to see at my example organization here. I can see metrics about this particular organization. Again, dummy data, that's why we're showing all 100s at this point for this particular organization. This is where I can see the sites associated with this particular organization. So you'll see this is a DoD org, but I have an example naval base, an Army research lab, and an Air Force base belonging to this organization. If I switch over to an Army organization and look at the sites available to that, all I see is that Army research lab. So there's some visual things we're trying to do to clean that up, to make that a little more apparent of those parent-child relationships. However, you can kind of see visually, this is a part of the Army, and then it nests and rolls up under the DoD organization as well. So jumping back to this DoD example org here, different features, capabilities from this particular screen, getting to see performance metrics, where this would be filled out of seeing historical trends of condition, functional indexes, performance indexes, FCI, and the like. This would also be the screen for establishing your different funding pots to be made available for long-range work analysis, establishing organization-level permissions and how those get assigned to different users within the application, and defining specifically what they can do as well under that role. This is a big upgrade from what we have in Builder, where you're set with the 5 out-of-the-box permission structure, and that's it. You have inventory through Master Planner. You can do what they can do, nothing more, nothing less, and customization very difficult. With ESMS, you can actually create as many of these roles as you see fit and as your organization needs, and then you can define exactly what they can do as a curator, assessor, work planner, assessment supervisor. We did have this a lot more wide open and a lot more flexible than it's currently showing. However, as we started looking at this and reviewing this more, we started to see some logical groupings around the kind of a curator role, an assessor, work planner, assessment supervisor, and those have defined roles and responsibilities of what they can do within the application. We've also split that out from the asset level and component inventory level to determine what a user can do for those as well. So you can have all the access to do everything below the real property record, as an example, but maybe we give you nothing at the asset level. So you can't touch it, you can't edit it, you can't delete it, can't add them. So we can maintain those real property records and not have to worry about things getting messed up between various updates. So a lot of flexibility there. Lastly, for the organization screen of setting reference books, very similar to Builder. What are the service life books you want to use, cost life books, modifiers, inflation books, and the rest. All right, so drilling down another layer, we have a site view here that shows us a different records for the sites that we have within that, and we can click on a particular site and get a lot more information about that. So we've got metrics here at the top, general information about a particular site, And then we can drill down into the specifics and see all the facilities that belong to this site, along with some quick metrics, quick facts about those particular facilities as we drill through. Trying to decide exactly which route I want to take here. We may as well just jump right in. So all of these grid views that you see here in these particular drawers are also navigable. So we can click on Warehouse 2, drive into all the details about this particular facility, see all of its general info, metrics there at the top. We can dive into the components. This one doesn't have components. That was a bad example, Matt. Find another one here that has something. Okay, maybe we'll work backwards the other way. I had a reason for doing that. So at the site level, you can see all the sites that belong to this particular organization. At this point, it's just our 3 example sites, but this could be a very long list. Across the top here, we can search for various things. So if it's a list of 3, we probably don't need to go searching for a site number. But if I have hundreds of sites here, I can actually just punch in a particular site code, and that was also a bad example because they're all JBAS. Search for a particular site code and see the results of that quite quickly. Dropping down another layer, facilities. This is a list of all the facilities that I have established within this organization at this point. So 51 facilities within the buildings domain for this DoD example organization. And very similar, we can drill through those buildings and find any components that may be associated with that particular facility, and then dive into the details of those components and navigate back through. So you can traverse the inventory by clicking through the various things. If I need to jump back to the facility, that's hyperlinked here. If I want to go back up to the site level, that's hyperlinked here. So we've gotten away from the tree view, the tree structure of Builder, where you have to click through a whole bunch of different expansion drawers, essentially, to get to what you're looking for. Here you can scan through a list, click on what you need, and then navigate from there within that as well. All right, so the form here for facilities and components, sites, facilities, components, all very similar structure. The capability of filtering and searching across all these columns is there in the same way. There's also the ability to select which columns you want to actually view. So I currently have these handful, 7 or so, that are selected, but I have a whole lot of others that I could actually turn on and have visible, and also filter on those in this list as well. So you can kind of curate the list and the columns that you want to see and what's most beneficial to you. So if you want to sort by the site that you've got, since we're at an organizational level view, I can add the site column. I could search by particular ones and which ones I want to view. So if I just want to look at the Air Force site components here, I can select that site or any others and see those specifically and have a curated list. All right, so jump back up to the facilities level here, and let's go ahead and add a couple more domains. Let's do fuel, pavement, and rail. So you'll see a list now of 107 results as opposed to the 51. Fairly snappy response. I did have our developers slide that slider just a little bit for today, so it's nice and responsive for us. But that is tongue-in-cheek, but a benefit of that new capability. As we have higher load on the application, a higher need for performance, slide the slider, do the work you need to do, and tune it back afterwards. You're paying for what you actually want to use, not paying for some huge supercomputer capability if you only need it for an hour out of the day. All right, so we've got a number of domains added here, 4 different ones of buildings, fuel, pavement, and rail. We have our list of all these components, and there's a few things I wanted to highlight in addition to the columns at the top here that are nice, helpful features as well. So I can create an asset, assuming I have the permissions to do so, and do that through this dialog that comes up, enter all the relevant information, create, navigate to that facility, or create and go back to our list. I can download this list as a CSV if I need to work with this in Excel for some reason. This grid view is not working for me. I need to get it out in Excel, do some manipulation there. I can do that. There's also a show map view as a pretty neat feature here of actually being able to navigate the inventory using a map view. And again, just to reiterate, made up data. This is not a real place. It was just plopped down in the middle of the continental United States, and that's where it lays. So we can navigate through that, pinch to zoom capabilities. I can zoom in to a particular component. This is fuel tank D. I can zoom to that if I want to see it a really close-up view, or I can actually jump to the details view of that particular fuel tank. This is at the facility level, so I can see the facility, real property information from that. I can drop down and see if there are any components associated with this particular one or not yet, and take off editing, viewing, doing anything I need to from that map view. So a lot of really great capabilities of being able to navigate the inventory in a map view. If you know where it is located on a map, but you don't want to search through a list of facilities as we have down here, you can very quickly find it on your map, click to it, and dive into navigating the inventory. So there's the map view, and then there's also a graph view here of just some out-of-the-box graphs, metrics that we thought would be helpful for a quick glance. This is not a replacement for reporting. This is not our new fancy custom reports delivered to you on a screen, but just some helpful metrics, helpful diagnostics to see where your assets are. All right, so let's get to a couple things here. I clicked on a fuel tank D as an example there. Just want to show just multiple facility types that are located here, or asset types, domain types. We have some pavement section here of an unpaved, looks like some sort of open storage laydown area, a roadway, and things like that. So just wanting to illustrate and highlight all these different domains on the same map, navigable, jump through all the different inventory as you need to. All right, jumping down to components, very similar setup here, different graphs and different metrics here that are shown on the right-hand side. We can see different condition index by different component types as a quick reference to see how different things are behaving. Obviously, this is a fairly unusable list with this large of a data set that I have, 3,250 different results here. But as we narrow this down, that gets a little bit more usable. So if I want to select a particular facility, say, hopefully fuel tank A has something in it, and it doesn't. That's how this is working so far. If I wanted to pick a facility that had components within that, select a site, zero in on a little finer grain detail, obviously that graph becomes more available. No map results showing for components yet. However, very similar to facilities, if you have component level GIS information, that could be tracked, mapped, and navigable here as well. Looks like we have a question at the mic.
Terminology question. The term asset, is that interchangeable with facility, or is that meant to be more encompassing of assets that are not just buildings? Is that the reason for that terminology change?
That's correct.
Okay, so when you were on that screen for the asset search, that's at the facility level?
Yes, so there's some terminology cleanup we're finding as well that needs to be hammered out here. So facilities on the left-hand side is actually going to be turned into asset to match all the way through. So facility is kind of a holdover from builder terminology, but we're looking to get all those lined up here as well.
And I'm sure that the training process will also clear that up as long as we're all trained to use the proper terminology. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem. Looks like we got one more.
Couple of questions. Okay, so like I'm Bill from Fort Cavazos. Will the mapping be available through, is it going to be a public domain mapping? Is it going to be our GIS provided mapping that y'all will work with through DPW or whomever it would be, the grouping, where we can actually have facility information when we bring that map down?
Yeah, the intent would be for whatever data that a service or agency has available and wants to share with us, that we could put in here, that would be the data driving this.
So is that something that's been spoke about, or is that,
Probably not in detail at this point yet.
okay, so that's not going to be offered when they do finally bring it up and start converting over information?
Yeah, that would probably be a later add-on of including that particular data stream.
And then second question is, will there be a default timeout on this program? Or is it something we can set in preferences?
Yeah.
Or, you know, is that going to be something as we start filling that black box up with information and users? Is that going to be something we're going to deal with on a regular basis?
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. I've taken that one a few times over the years up here. So the timeout requirement is dictated by that risk management framework body that governs our authority to operate. So that's an immovable requirement. The plus side is the way that ESMS handles that is improved over Builder. Because there were some Builder processes that would not inform the application that it's still being used. And so I'd think, he must have gone to lunch, we're going to time out. However, ESMS is intended to better leverage that.
Okay. And then at a facility level, will there be charts and tables available for that facility, like you have on Builder?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. See if I can get a couple examples here. So at the broader level facility view, you'll have these charts available here. As we select into an individual facility asset, there would be the performance record, tracking here to show the historical trends for that particular facility. These are the basic out of the box metric, charting and capabilities. Here, after this round of questions, get into a little more detail of further reporting using Power BI and things like that to make whatever charts your heart desires. So, one more question?
Yeah, question. When you went to create an asset, I saw there was an entry box for the PRV. Is that something that will be updated every year when we get new real property updates, or is that something that the users are going to have to go in and update manually?
Yeah, so the intent for any of the DoD customers would be that those facility asset records are driven off of the real property database. And so most users are not going to touch any of those at any point. They're just going to be reading them and seeing those visible. However, we have capability-wise, feature-wise, we work beyond DoD and at the eventual licensing path we talked about a little bit ago, outside of that, where they may not have those databases to work with. So we have the ability to edit it, the ability to create it, controlled by permissions. So when I was showing that asset level permission marker on the org side, if they have none, they can't do anything. They can't add one, they can't edit, can't delete it. They can just see it. That's about it. Yep. Paul T.L.
From online, does ESMS have an ATO for Department of Defense Impact Level 5 data?
At this point, no. What we're pursuing at this point is the IL4 ATO. We do have some initial things we're working into and looking into for how to get to that point and be able to offer that. However, the vast majority of us are not at that yet, so that's the first target we're trying to meet. Thanks. All right, so let's jump back into walking through the application. Looking to see if I've got any time indicators. Kurt, we still good on time? All right. So drilling down to component level, I think we covered this, talking through some of those details. I can see a particular component within an asset, within a facility, all of its general information, the specification, uniformat classification as those get added, replacement values, easily available quantities, things like that. I have the ability to create a new component from this screen, edit the current one, or delete the current one. Again, permissions controlled, permissions driven. Metrics about this particular component, as well as additional information here at the bottom. I can see any assessments associated with this component. This one doesn't have any. I can add that directly from this view as well. Any work items that would be associated with that, I can see those here. Any information about inspection scheduling related to this component could be visible here as well. Any documents that I may need to add, manuals, warranty information, things like that. I could add those here. The cost modifier capability and feature, what modifiers are applied and how are those tracked from that view. And then any performance records kind of charting the trend of condition of this particular component over time. So this one is just showing different conditions that were entered for this particular component. So very similar to the facilities and sites view, you can navigate and traverse the entire hierarchy, the entire inventory, the assessments, the work items, all integrated with one another. So you don't have to come back to one of these tabs over here or drawers over here within this feature set. If you can more organically navigate through the building, through the particular asset, navigating components, I want to look at the assessment for that. Who did that assessment? What was their rating? I want to jump back to the building. All of that can be done fairly organically. All right, so that covers those. Let's maybe spend a minute here talking about groups. So the concept of groups, and we're kind of working internally to maybe clarify some of this, make this a little more intuitive and understandable if you're not within our team and have developed it and worked with it. There's probably even confusion within our team just based on the capability here. So a group within ESMS is essentially a collection of managed objects. And those objects could be buildings and facilities, or those could be different components. So the concept of complexing within Builder would fit into the group concept within ESMS. I have a collection of facilities I want to manage together. I want to track those conditions together. I maybe want to plan against those together. Let's lump those into a group and manage those as one. I may have a collection of components, which I think is most of our examples here for the demonstration today that I want to manage together. I can collect those, clump those into a particular group. So let's see if I can find a good representative example here. So this is a rail segment. The parent group is the main track. So we're talking rail domain here. And we can click on that group and start seeing information about this particular group. The total replacement cost, where applicable and computed, where we have those values that we can provide, overall quantity, metrics, construction type, things of that nature. And then I can see the individual components that belong to this group as well. So in this case, there's, 5 to 10 different components within this particular group that we have lumped together. We're managing them as a group and taking care of those all together. There's also a concept of child groups that can get really crazy really fast, because you could have a really long turtles all the way down situation with nested groups. So caution in utilizing groups in that regard. Assessments. There's also the ability of creating these assessments at the group level. So if I want to assess the entire group of components together and assign the section, the assessment score for all the components within that particular group, I can do that through this. Any work items associated with that group. Again, some repetitive themes there of the drawers available, but just wanted to highlight these different things that can be done at a group level or collection of managed objects, managed components, or managed facilities together in one single place. All right, there may be more questions on that in a bit, but we'll press on for now. All right, so the next part here is the assess step. So in assessments, we have a very similar flow and look that we had in the inventory section here. And this is just a list of all the different assessments that you have for the assets that are selected. So I've got a few domains selected, currently only one assessment in here. for this particular example. But I can drill into that particular assessment and see information about that, who did it, when they did it, what was the type of assessment, and what was the score that was given. One thing to note that is different within ESMS as compared to Builder is that all of the different assessment types are residing in this particular spot. So we can have the same structure, the same framework, and have direct condition ratings, distress surveys, functionality assessments, or any other type of assessment that we can come up with can all be located in one spot. And those are divvied out by different assessment types, different assessment templates, and how those are scored, how those are cataloged, how those are rolled up can all be done independently. So rather than having condition assessments done in one part and functionality assessments done in a different part using a different data structure, we've brought all that together to provide the flexibility that we had in Builder functionality assessments to all of the different assessment types within ESMS. Very similar, these can also be navigated through all the way up the inventory tree. So I was on the assessment for a particular component, and that component is hyperlinked here. I can drill into the details of that component. If I want to see, well, what are the other components related to this facility or a part of this facility, I can do that as well. So again, just driving home that flexibility and agility to navigate the application without jumping back here to the big list, searching for a particular facility, and finding our information that way. All right, let's see. Next step on assessments. So this is undergoing a lot of rework and refinement here. So I won't belabor the point clicking on this one and showing the nitty-gritty on this one, but the idea of an assessment plan is essentially establishing a list of components or facilities that need to be assessed and the ability to assign different team members to that. So it's essentially creating a pre-assessment plan for going out and performing an assessment, and you can manage that assessment plan together in one spot and provide a little more efficiency in how we go out and do that. So if you have one particular facility at an installation you need to go out and perform an assessment on, you can create a plan for that one, run out and do that, navigating it through the plan as opposed to hunting and searching through the longer list, the broader list, just to find that one particular facility asset. All right, so drilling into the work area here, some similar functionality capabilities of Builder with some new names. So work analysis is what we previously called scenarios within Builder. This is our long-range work projection capability within ESMS. So we can dive into this, see example of a policy where standards and policies have come together into kind of one morphed object together where we can define various standards and rules for condition thresholds and then define the condition and remaining service life thresholds that we want to perform or replace versus a global repair, local repair, maintenance, and inspection. So you could actually do inspection scheduling, inspection triggering from this as well in a long-range work analysis plan. And then the scope setting here is what assets or components do these standards apply to. So that would be very similar to the policy on the Builder side. I want to have a high standard for HVAC in my hospital. I don't mind if I have a low standard for that same HVAC in a warehouse or admin space, just due to criticality. So that's defining how those particular standards are applied, and then the resultant of what you do once that's triggered. Similar to Builder on the priority scheme here, and you'll notice some different colors. We're systematically working through these, updating some of these, so you may see a few different versions of styling and themes here getting mixed in. But priority, where we're establishing the framework for a scored priority assignment for each individual work item. That could be based on the facility that it is, the class of facility, the mission dependency of that particular facility, the return on investment for a particular work action, any number of things that you can think of. We can define an objective for that, assign a score for each one of those attributes, and then provide a rolled up list or scoring of every one of those work items so we know what are the most important work items to you and what should we get after and fund first. The profile setup here is where we can essentially establish a profile for work analysis, a profile for a projection out into the future, defining the cost books we want to use, all the reference settings there at the top. What domains do we want to include? Do we want this to be a cross-domain, everything on my base, everything on my campus that I want to look at? Or do I want to narrow in on a particular domain and focus on that for this? Organizational scope. Am I looking at the whole thing? Do I want to narrow in on a particular sub-organization or site within that? And then funding sources that I want to apply to see where my cut line might be on funded work versus backlogged work. So we can configure these, hit generate work, and that's going to run through essentially the scenario process with all the upgrades. The last step here of work, this is where you would see essentially the completed results of those different profiles, and you could navigate the different results there within that. And then the last tab here of a queue. So as we kick these off, we can see a queue of things that are being executed and where you're at in that particular queue, and then again, notifications showing up once those are completed. All right, so similar to the Builder application, the work items is a replacement for the work plan screen within Builder. So this is where I've set up my work analysis. I've got a 10-year scenario out into the future, 10-year profile of all the different repairs, replace actions, maybe inspections that I need to perform in the next 10 years. I'm happy with this profile. I think this is the one I want to move forward with. I can copy those results here to the work items screen for actual carrying that out, execution, and managing those. So it moves from the hypothetical to this is what I'm actually going to move out on and execute with. So we can, again, drill through this, very similar structure to the other aspects of the inventory and assessment structure. We can drill into the details of a particular work item, what it's recommending, the cost, current CI, things like that. So some hyperlinking we need to add here to mimic the rest of the application so that you can traverse from the work items as well. All right. So maybe yeah, go ahead, Paul Teal.
First question here. We saw users can schedule maintenance work in work analysis. Do you plan on allowing the system to provide the steps needed to complete that planned maintenance?
Paul Teal, can you repeat the first part? I missed that.
Sure. We saw users can schedule maintenance work in work analysis. Do you plan on allowing the system to provide the steps needed to complete that planned maintenance?
Yes, I think that's this page here. So at this point, there would be the structure is there to input that. That would have to be further detailed out on what those maintenance plans are. If they have detailed maintenance plans they want to include that get generated with triggering that particular condition. Thanks. You have one more? Okay.
All right, another one. Kurt showed the funding tab under organizations. Can you speak to that? Also very concerned with roles and permissions being the Wild West. Can orgs set required roles for subordinates?
Great questions. Okay. Okay, so I guess I'll take those in turn. So the funding screen here, at the organizational level, establishing different funding sources. So we'll just do this live and see how things go. So we've got the ability to add multiple sources and funding values associated with those. and we can work through, the various details on, the number of years, the amount of funds that are allotted to that particular source, and establish those for those work analysis profiles, very similar to Builder, defining the funding that you want to use for a particular long-range work plan. On the permissions front, I think I heard the concern of permissions being the Wild West. So this is obviously an admin level view. This is not going to be what everybody sees. You're going to be assigned roles in the large, vast majority, and then you won't be able to change that. You could request new ones, but you're not going to have the ability to define your own role and make your way up. Another new concept within ESMS is the concept of a localized admin or organizational level admin. So that would actually allow a service or agency lead to be an admin for that organization, and they can help define the roles and permissions for their organization and assign people to those. That is going to require, again, for RMF purposes and reasons, an additional set of training, since you'll have wide open access to define permissions. You know, great power, great responsibility from Uncle Ben. So that will be a part of that as well. But that's a new concept that we haven't had in Builder. It was a broad level admin or not. And so kind of pushing some of that down, empowering the services and agencies is the goal of that. Sure.
Melissa Belton, Booz Allen Hamilton. My question is a callback to the groupings. When you have the groupings set for if I set groupings for like housing and dorms, would that be visible to everybody, or is that just for my profile? And if it's not just for my profile, how can I lock that down so that everybody can see, like if you're at base X, you have that dorms grouping of cat codes?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the groups are database wide, it's not user specific. So if you're creating a group, that would be visible to everybody else that has permissions to that. So if they have permissions to a particular site, you've created a group within that site, they will see that group and all the child components or facilities of that.
So at a mid-level headquarters, how would you keep it clean so that you're not seeing all the groupings from every base across the enterprise?
Good use of filters, I guess, in one regard, from this particular screen, selecting what you actually want to look at. Another avenue may, if you're at a higher echelon, this may not be the best view, maybe in the reporting view, which I was going to get to in a few minutes. That might be a better way of interacting with it at that point. Yep. 10 minutes? All right. I see Joe's ready. Go ahead, Joe.
I'll just limit it. I had 3 here, but I'll just go with 1. On the grouping capability with scenarios, will we have it sounds like we'll have an ability we didn't have with Legacy Builder, and that is the ability to work scenarios across the grouping. Say you want to group them by a specific classification of assets within let's say buildings, for example. Will we be able to do that now with this capability?
Yeah, so are you saying like...
Let's say I just want to look at cat code barracks. I'm just going to make up, I just want to forecast work across specific set of systems within for example, a critical cat code like barracks, something that would pertain to barracks. So there's like 14 of them, I think, in the Army. But I would be curious if we'd have that ability to limit a scenario just to run on that grouping, and then see the results and plan accordingly from that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So what I've navigated to here is on the profile screen of work analysis. I did that quick, so let me go back. Clicking the scope option here, right below scope, opening that up. This is where you're defining the scope of a particular profile and what assets are or are not included. And so currently I've got that set up as an organization level across my DoD example, but I could switch that over to groups. And this is undergoing a lot of rework at the moment. But the idea is, so I'd be able to select a group, assign assets or components to a group, and then do that projection for that particular group and see, if it's your housing example, if I create a group of all my housing assets, then I want to do a 10-year run, see where those are in 10 years, I could look just at those. Alternatively, you could do a broader one across the entire base, and then using reporting narrow in, what does my group look like at the end of that? Cool. All right. All right, so just in the last couple of minutes that I've got here, last couple of features to show. The ability, I mentioned this in one of the other screens of documents. So if I want to add drawings, add warranty information, add user manuals and things like that, we can actually add those here, similar to Builder, but this is kind of an overarching, all-encompassing view for all the different documents that I have access to. And those can be tied to different facilities, different components, different groups, and then you can navigate through and see those as well. So I can preview a particular drawing, if I'm not in the loop of death here. Yeah, yep. It wouldn't be a live demo without a little panic. All right, let's try this again. All right, this might be a take my word for it moment. If I just met you, hopefully you can trust my word in the future. But anyway, the concept here is the ability to have documents. Those can be assigned to and attached to different, looks like I just clicked on it again. Can be assigned to different levels of the inventory, and then those could be previewed, downloaded within here. I don't know what happened in the last 2 minutes here. All right, so the last piece I wanted to show before we go for break here is the reporting capability. Now this is going to be a fairly basic view, very basic layout, but the thing I want to highlight and make visible here is that this is Power BI dashboarding reporting capability embedded within the application and controlled by the user permissions that I have on this particular instance. So this is filtered data for the data that's in here based on what I have permission to in this application, or this instance of the application. So we're kind of building out these different views, different reports of being able to see different assets at different levels. Again, this is kind of a rough draft SketchUp, but the primary thing to show is that this is user permission controlled, and we can expand from here ad infinitum. It's an extremely powerful capability, extremely powerful tool. And the other thing I wanted to mention was questions we've received in the past about the QA, QC reports from Builder. What's our plan for those within ESMS? And initially, looking at this drop down of reports, the idea was, well, looks like we've got a lot of reports to add. We better get busy. However, since then, we've come up with a better architecture, better framework that minimizes the report maintenance and work that needs to be done in keeping up with all those reports through the use of bookmarks. So they're not visible, and it's not turned on in this particular view at the moment, but when it is, the filters pane here, there would be another one next to it for bookmarks. And we could have a named bookmark for each one of those QC reports, QA, QC, finals, any of those reports you're familiar with in Builder, and that would adjust essentially this grid view that you see, this table view, to mimic that particular report. Most of those have like a 75 to 80% overlay and overlap with one another, and so instead of creating a new version of that for every single one, utilizing bookmarks, we can flex and contract those different data points that are available for this particular report. So expect to see a lot more development here in kind of the visual side of it and bringing in those bookmarks and QA, QC reports by the time we meet up again. But with that, I'll see if there are any other final questions. And if not, hand it back to our Jimmy Kimmel. All right. Thank you again. I really appreciate everyone coming out this morning. Thank you.
All right, I'm told that Matt's slides, as well as ours from yesterday, are already loaded on the smssummit.com website, and you can also get there from your QR code on your name tag. Note that they are trying to be respectful of copyrighted IP. They are low-res PDFs that are on there. And now we're going to do a break, and we're going to come back at 10:30, bottom of the hour, for our first panel.